So once again, welcome to the Unshakable Foundation meeting of Cocaine Anonymous. This is a main share meeting, and today it is with great pleasure and much gratitude that we welcome Lovey, who has come to share on the topic of love and kindness for up to 40 minutes, after which we'll open up the meeting for Q&A portion. So Lovey, it's over to you. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Good evening, good evening, good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you happen to be on the planet. Time zones are difficult for me because I always seem to be like bouncing from one to another. Guys, good morning, again, evening. My name is Lovey and I am an addict, although alcohol was my drug of choice. And guys, it's only by the grace of God and Alcoholics Anonymous that I'm alive, sober, and recovered from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. And what that means is that I get to be useful in my life today. What that means is that I get to, be the person that I should have always been. What that means is that I didn't wake up hungover this morning. What it means is I'm not chasing that next drink. So guys, I have a grand sponsor who absolutely insists that I do this. There we go, my little red nose. And Rule 62, following our fourth tradition, right? Don't take yourself so damn seriously, right? Guys, we are not a glum lot and we absolutely insist on enjoying life. And this book is a design for living, right? The things that we get to do as a result of being recovered members of a 12-step program. And for that, I am just so incredibly grateful. I have a sobriety date. It is September the 7th of 2015. And in that unbelievably short amount of time, there's been no need or obsession to pick up a drink or a drug. I told you I have a sponsor who has a sponsor who has a sponsor ad infinitum. And I sponsor sponsors. And there's one time I complained about a GSR meeting and now I have a service sponsor. So guys, be very careful what you complain to your sponsors about because you may end up in service. And I will tell you, service has definitely kept me clean and sober and on the right path. I have a home group. It is known as the Global Main Purpose Group. Like you guys, we are virtual. We meet on Tuesday nights at 7 p.m. Tonight, actually, 7 p.m. Eastern time. And we're a big book study, and we go through the book experientially. We have a facilitator, and I think we have one current facilitator, Sherry L., and a past facilitator, Babe K., here with us today. And everybody is invited. So if you're interested, you want to know more about it, please let me know. I'm happy to send you that information. But guys, due to the power of amends, I get to live on the beautiful island of Bermuda. And Bermuda is a UK overseas territory. So it's kind of like being home. But if you find yourself on my beautiful island when I happen to be there and you want to go to a meeting, please let me know. I'm more than happy to take you or make arrangements for you to be taken to a meeting. And conversely, if you find yourself in New England, in the Connecticut, Massachusetts area, and you want to go to a meeting, please let me know. That is also my privilege and my honor. Young, thank you so much for asking me for this group for hosting this meeting. I've been here a couple of times and it's always a privilege. But what you're going to hear is 100% my experience, my truth, in and out of the program. See, I can't share with you anything that I don't have, right? And I can only share with you my experience. I've got nothing else to offer, right? Like you guys, I am a fellow traveler on this journey, and I do not profess to say that I know anything about Alcoholics Anonymous, about the big book, about Cocaine Anonymous, about God, right? See, what happens in my life is that these are things that change every single day, right? My relationship with all of you change every single day. My relationship with God changes every single day. And for that, I am most grateful. So, I've shared my story here in the past, and Young asked me for a topic, and I was like, I don't know what I'm going to talk about. And one of the things that I really try to be in my life is love and kind to all in both thought and action, which led me to step 11, right? So I think I'm going to, the bulk of this is going to be about my relationship, how I came to a relationship with God, because fundamentally that's what recovery is all about, right? So step 11 says, we sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood him, praying only for knowledge of his will for us and the power to carry that out, right? So in the big book, in the chapter, We Agnostics, it talks about, lack of power. And this lack of power is my dilemma, right? See, I always thought that I had power, that I could do things on my own steam, that I had the willpower to stop, and that was never, ever the case. So you guys told me that if I'm powerless, right, I need a power greater than me. And the book tells me that I had to find a power by which I could live. And I had to understand that what I have is a spiritual malady. And I didn't know what that was until you guys told me that a spiritual malady is a giant God-sized hole in the middle of my heart, right? And that alcohol filled that hole perfectly. And when I wasn't drinking for whatever reason, right, I could fill that hole with other substances, which I did, right? Some of them were non-conference approved. Sometimes it was food, sometimes it was sex, sometimes it was adrenaline, sometimes it was shoes. I got a thing with shoes. In fact, my sponsor has me on a shoe diet. I can't buy a pair of shoes without my sponsor's permission. That is just not fair, right? But fundamentally, I was able to fill that chasm, right, with alcohol. And I've come to learn, just like Timothy said in the opening statement, that alcohol was not my problem, right? Alcohol was my solution. Alcohol was my solution. It provided relief for sobriety, right? Because when I am sober, there's nothing between you and me, and there's nothing between me and life, right? I didn't like not having a substance in my body because I just didn't like the way that I felt, right? Irritable, restless, discontent. My skin was on fire. And it felt, it just felt overwhelming. And so alcohol, right? Outside issues would help just provide that calm, that sense of comfort and ease. So if I have this spiritual malady, guys, right, I need a spiritual solution, not a chemical solution. And if this malady is the result of being selfish and self-centered, like it talks about on page 62 of our book, then unselfishness must be what recovery looks like, right? But the book also reminds me that I cannot be unselfish on my own power in as much as that I can't stop drinking on my own power, right? Because I'm powerless. And if I had power, right, guys, I would be rendered sober and unselfish. Wouldn't that be really cool, right? To be absolutely unselfish at the drop of a hat, right? But I can't do that on my own. I need to have help from God. So lack of power is my ongoing perpetual dilemma. So if I'm powerless, I have to find a power greater than me, which will allow me to live a happy, sane, and useful life. A useful life, right? How do I live a useful life? Now, in my own experience, right, that's just for me, I cannot be sane or happy without being useful, right? And this is what this program teaches me to be wholly useful, to love God's kids, right? So as many of you know, I was a pilot, and in our Judeo-Christian society, where does God hang out? Up there, right? And where do I hang out as a pilot? Up there, right? And I would be up in the air and I'd be looking down at all you little minions, right? Thinking that I had, the hand of creation, that I was in charge. And my sponsor said to me early on when I was getting sober and going through the steps, he says, Lovey, do you now believe in God? No, absolutely, unequivocally not. Exasperated, right? Exasperated. My sponsor says, all right, are you willing to at least believe in a power that's greater than you? That I could buy, right? And I said, yeah, sort of, kind of, maybe. I will do that. I'm willing to believe in a power greater than me. The big book uses the word willing 36 times, right? Willingness is a huge, huge part of my program. But the book also tells me that I have to lay aside my prejudice, right? What is my prejudice? Those are my old ideas, my thoughts, my ambitions. It's sort of the religion of my youth. It's the experiences that I've had up until this point, right? I have to lay that aside. The book tells me I need to be willing. Again, there's that word willing, and I need to seek. And seeking is an action. And the big book uses the word action 22 times, and it's intimated another 30 times, right? So I did what the book told me to do, right? I took the action, regardless of what I felt about it, right? See, I prayed to a power that I didn't believe in, that I couldn't understand. And I have a friend, Laura B. in Texas, who says, what you believe has nothing to do with staying sober. How you feel about it has nothing to do with staying sober. Even what I thought about it had nothing to do with staying sober. You see, it's all entirely contingent on the action that I take, right? It's like going to the gym. I don't have to like going to the gym. I don't have to believe that the gym is going to work. But if I take the action and do the steps, guess what, right? I start to feel better. I start to lose weight. I start to have more endurance. See, for me, AA stands for action and accountability. I don't get struck sober sitting in the rooms of Cocaine Anonymous, right? I don't get struck sober, clean and sober, by just through osmosis, right? With my bum sitting in a chair. And so I've got to do this work. So, it's like this cake mix, right? If I want this cake mix, I have to follow these directions. Exactly, right? But I don't know about you guys, but I tend to do things half-ass, right? I'm going to go, oh, it takes 2/3 a cup of oil. You know what? I'm on a diet. My son is getting married, so I'm going to use applesauce instead. 2 eggs? Come on. Really? I've got kids that are vegan, so I'm going to use an egg substitute. It's not chocolatey enough, so I'm going to throw in a handful of chocolates, right? But if I want that spiritual awakening that's outlined in the 12 steps or that spiritual awakening as the result of the 12 steps, I need to follow those directions exactly, right? So that I get this cake, right? That I get to have that experience. You see, today, guys, I have a practice today that works for me, right? And I can tell you that as a result of the 12 steps, I'm in a relationship with a power today that is gracious, loving, kind, forgiving, and compassionate. In the 9th step promises, it asks us, are these extravagant promises? Hell yes, they are. Those are extremely extravagant promises for someone like me, right? Guys, I would come to not knowing where I am, right? I came to, okay, how do I say this? So I was supposed to be in Paris. I opened the curtains from my hotel window and I can see the Eiffel Tower, but it looks a little wonky. It's not exactly the way I remembered it, right? Because I was in Las Vegas. Somehow I changed my ticket from Paris to Las Vegas. See, I don't know what happens during those times, right? I end up in handcuffs in the back of police cars, right? Extravagant, unbelievable promises for somebody like me. Now, every morning when I wake up, right? This is pages 86. I ask God to direct my thinking, right? First thing I do, God, please help me. Let my thinking be divorced of self-pity, self-seeking, right? Because it's all about me, or dishonest motives, right? Left to me, I would choose me, right? Left to me, I would choose that easy way out, right? Lying, cheating, stealing, right? And I ask God to give me an intuitive thought or action. I ask God to please help me relax, to take it easy, to help me not to struggle, right? And I ask God to help me throughout the whole day and to be aware of what my next step is to be and to give me whatever I need, right? Whatever I need to solve that problem. Not what I want, but what I need, right? And I ask God to please help me love your kids, right? How can I love God's kids? See, guys, today I understand that my only job today is to suit up and show up and love God's or care for God's kids right here, right now, on their journey, wherever that might be, with love and compassion, right? Without opinion or judgment. So on awakening, right, the second half of that first step, that 11th step, I'm following directions, right? I'm taking that action, and I connect with this power, whether I feel it or not, right? It's like our cell phones, right? We all have one of these. I'm sure we all do. Some of us are connected to this meeting through this little device, and this little phone has more computing power than the technology that took man to the moon in 1969, right? But this thing is useless if I don't do some things with it, right? It's got to be charged. I got to plug it in, and so that the battery is charged. And then I have to put in my code, and then I got to go over here to settings, and I press settings, and right, I hit cellular or Wi-Fi, and then poof, all of a sudden I'm connected. I'm connected to all of you guys, right? I can text Young, who reminds me, the meeting room is open. Don't forget, you're speaking for us, right? I can download recipes. I can look at pictures of my grandson. I can go to TikTok and see what the latest trend is, right? I get to be connected, right? We talk about we talk about independence being based on dependence. I am really independent now, right? Because I'm dependent on this phone. I can go anywhere, right? But just because I don't have a message does not mean that I'm not connected, right? Maybe it's just because I've read all my messages and no one has texted me or emailed me. And I get to do that, right? Then it also tells us on page 87 that we pause throughout the day when we are agitated or doubtful. I don't know about you guys, but I am rarely doubtful. You want to know why? Because I still think I'm always right, right? So I have a practice today that reminds me I am not always right. And my sponsor tells me that until further notice, my husband is always right and I am always wrong, even when I am right, right? So that's a really humbling experience. So this past weekend, we were taking care of my mother-in-law. It's Sunday, and it's Easter Sunday, and we're traveling. And my husband says to me, oh, well, we'll stop and we'll get something to eat. And I went, it's Easter Sunday. Everything's going to be closed. No, it'll be fine. It'll be fine. Guess what? Everything was closed. And he actually said to me, oh my God, you were right. You know what I did? Because I'm petty and self-seeking, right? I texted my sponsor, guess what? My husband said I was right. My sponsor told me to get over myself, right? And my sponsor reminds me to pray the pause in my life, right? To pray that pause. That pause is 30 seconds long oftentimes, right? And it's just enough to keep me out of trouble. It's enough time to keep my mouth shut. It's enough time to keep me from for the next intuitive thought or action, right? And when I invite God into my marriage, right, all of those buttons that my husband has installed seems really, really insignificant, right? See, I don't have the ability to do that. I can't do that. That's my higher power working in my life because I took the action. I spent 12 hours in a closed car with my husband and we did not have one fight. That's not me, guys. That is absolutely not me. That is my higher power working in my life, right? And what began to happen for me is by taking these actions in the morning, I'm able to stay connected to and able to access this power throughout the entire day, right? That conversation that I started in the morning, I'm able to carry it through with me throughout the entire day, right? And that's because I'm able to keep my eyes on God, right? And when my eyes are on God, I'm not worried about you guys. Right? I am not worried about me. I am doing what I need to do. And when my eyes are on God, right, I surrender my opinion, my judgment, and what I think I know about all of you and what I think I know about God. Right? I get to surrender that because that changes every single day. Now, I'm sure all of you meet a lot of people every single day. Some new, some are the same people. Because, you ride the same train or in the same office, whatever it happens to be. And sometimes my days start the same people. It's like, hi, how are you? Right? Have a great day. That's just social norm. That's the way we do things, right? And what happens is that I recognize people, but I don't really, really know them, right? And it's hard to get to know somebody when I just say, good morning, have a nice day, or good evening, see you tomorrow. But there are people that I speak with every single day. Right? And even then, it's just, a little chit chat. Hey, how are you? How's the weather? Asking if they're cooking, if they cook for the Easter holiday. The exchange is pleasant. I look forward to seeing them, but they're not really friends, right? I don't know them well enough. They could be, but they're absolutely not. But when I take the time to sit down and to get to know somebody, right, I learn about them. And there's this exchange of information, right? It's a two-way street. I ask them questions, right? Hey, where are you from? How many kids do you have? How long have you been married? How long have you been sober? And then I stop and I listen for the answer, right? I don't keep like ramming questions down their thought and then walk away. I identify, I relate, and I share similar experience or feeling with them. Then the roles are reversed, right? They ask me a question and then I answer. And before long, we have a relationship. We become friends. And over time, this exchange becomes more intimate, right? We start discussing personal details and revealing unknown truths about ourselves. And with time, I learn to trust this person. With time, I come to value this person's opinion and their guidance, right? I come to value their presence in my life. And with time, I consider this person a significant part of my life. And my relationship with God is absolutely no different. Just saying thank you in the morning and the evening, or even using a rote prayer, for me is not a personal relationship, right? I need to take the time to interact with God, to ask questions, and to wait for the answers, right? Prayer and meditation. For me, prayer is talking to God, and meditation is listening for God. And God shows up to me through the people of 12-step programs, right? It's being awake and present, right? The answer to my question might be a billboard that I see on the highway, right? For bariatric surgery. Oh yeah, my son's getting married. I better drop 10 pounds, right? It could be that the answer I need is coming from hearing two little old ladies in the grocery store talking about something. It's like, oh yeah, absolutely. I need to do that, right? So prayer and meditation, this is where this comes from, that I get to develop a relationship with God and listen to it, because now I've become friends, right? See, I am also learning to trust God, right? In my third step was all about coming to trust God. God, can I trust you? Can I trust you with my life? And then doing 5, 6, and 7, right? Now the roles are reversed. God is like, can I trust you, Lovey? Can I trust you with my kids, right? Can God rely on me? Can God rely on me to put his kids first, right? And that is absolutely incredible for someone like me, right? That God can trust me with his kids. Because there was a time nobody could trust me with anything, nothing, not even myself, right? And there are watershed moments, right? Where these tests are offered and met. My daughter had a baby in September, and the baby came 5 weeks early, and I was able to suit up and show up and be a mother and a grandmother. I sat with my daughter in the NICU for 7 straight weeks holding her hand. This past weekend, I was up taking care of my mother-in-law, who's old and frail and dementia. And I get to do these things today, right? Because I listen to my higher power. Now, page 77 of our big book, probably one of my most favorite lines, it says that my real purpose, right, as an individual, is to fit myself to be of maximum service to God and the people about me. Now, to fit myself does not sound very convenient or very comfortable, right? It's like taking 11 UK footballers and putting them into a Fiat, right? It can be done. It's just not very pretty. It's probably not very comfortable, right? But that's what I get to do today, right? Listen, a good friendship has inconveniences, right? A good friendship can sometimes be a little exasperating because we don't always understand. But I want to step up. I want to be, right? And I gladly help the people in my life. And I get to do that today because I'm willing to help God's kids, because God has asked me to do that, right? I didn't want to go up and look after my mother-in-law for Easter. I had plans, guys. I had plans, right? But remember, the book tells me to lay aside my prejudices, which are my old ideas and designs and my plans. And I just had to let that be and go take care of God's kids, right? Because my mother-in-law is one of God's kids. Um, and then in the evening, right? In the evening, I'm sort of doing this in reverse. The directions again ask me to review my day, right? And I do a nightly 11 step every single night. I send it to my sponsor. I send it to all my sponsees. I send it to my God Squad, and they send it back. I get 28 nightly inventories every single night. And of course, I read that and I respond. And what does it ask us to do, right? It asks me to reflect. Was I resentful today? Sometimes, right? Was I selfish? Yeah, probably. Was I dishonest? Maybe, maybe not. Was I afraid? Always, right? But a good 10th step will take care of many of those situations for me, right? Including the apology if one is indicated. You see, for me, step 11 is a daily housekeeping, right? It's like making the bed, sweeping the floor, doing the dishes. It's done daily to keep me sane, happy, and useful. Now, step 10 for me is that emergency cleanup on aisle 10, right? That's when I break an egg or spill maple syrup, and it's got to be cleaned up right away. Otherwise, it makes a horrific mess, right? And I just can't have that, because the book tells me that resentment, fear, right, is my number one offender. For me, resentment always comes from fear, right? That if I'm in fear, I have this disagreement with myself, and I'm irritable, restless, and discontent, and that needs to be remedied immediately. And so that immediate tension has me feeling much, much better. And I send that to my sponsor. My sponsor will usually remind me, you know what, you're okay. Go pray on it. Pray for the pause, right? The text also asks me, have I kept something to myself which I should discuss with another person at once? Kind of sounds like a 5th step, right? Guys, I have to be honest with my sponsor. I have to be honest with my God Squad, right? I have to talk about the positive and healthy things in my life as well as the negative ones, right? If I complain about my husband, right? If I do a 10th step on my husband, that's all you hear, right? How he didn't do this and how he didn't do that, and right? But am I telling you that he brought me flowers? Am I telling you that, you know what, he folded the towels? Am I telling you that he washed dishes, or that he held my hand when we walked, right? I also have to reference those really, really good things. And I need to share that with my God Squad. And I have to share the entire story of my relationship. The good, which there's a lot of, the bad, not so much, and the ugly, hardly anymore. And you want to know why? Because I am sober, practicing a program of spiritual principles, and my husband is always right, right? All right. And then it asks me, was I kind and loving towards all, capital A, capital L, capital L, all, right? There is no wiggle room in all. That means all y'all. See, I got a Southern sponsor. I picked up all y'all. See, am I kind and loving to that person I don't like, right? It's how do I behave when I'm at Heathrow on the busiest travel day of the year and there's a fire? Right? Oh, what am I going to do? I got places to be. I got things, right? How do I behave, right? How do I behave when I'm on, Toronto's notorious 401 on a Friday evening at 5 p.m. and everybody is headed to cottage country, right? How do I behave? How do I behave when I'm standing in line behind the little old lady paying in coupons and pennies at the market and there was someplace that I had to be 30 minutes ago, right? How do I behave? Guys, I can usually tell you that I behave really, really well, right? I've got action down, right? I can behave really well in a 12-step meeting, right? I can behave really well for an hour. But what am I doing in my thoughts, right? What are my thoughts doing? Am I kind and loving in thinking about you, or am I character assassinating you while I'm smiling and batting my eyelashes, right? This is the real test for me today, right? Not about behaving well, because I can usually do that. If I'm having a spiritual good hair day, none of that matters. It's what my thoughts are doing, right? Am I kind and loving? Are my thoughts compassionate, right? Now, there is a line in our book that says, love and tolerance of others is our code. I cannot use the word tolerance, right? For me, tolerance comes from a place of spiritual hubris. Yeah, I'm just putting up with you and your nonsense, right? But instead, if I say I am coming from a place of compassion, I get to put myself into your shoes. I get to look at the world through your lenses, right? I get to see your struggles. Oh, that's amazing. So for me, the word is, was I kind and compassionate? Are my thoughts compassionate? It asks me, what could have I done better? Right? I can always do something better, right? I could have prayed more. I could have thought less negatively about, Isaac, for instance. I just saw your name, Isaac, sorry. For me, what I can do better is about sitting in connection, right? How am I staying connected to my higher power? If I hide out in dark places, right? If I go into a building that has lots of concrete in it, right? I'm not going to be able to connect to my phone. Or, I'm trying to reach my husband. Do we really need this from Costco? Oh, he's not connecting, right? Well, that's because I'm hiding out in a place that doesn't allow me to connect with God, right? So what could I have done better? Do I spend enough time in communication and action with God, right? Do I continue to invite God into everything I do, right? One of the things that I say is, hey, God, I got my hair done today. And I go, hey, God, I'm getting my hair done today. Why don't you come with me? Get in the car. Yeah, we'll have a nice ride. We'll chat along the way. Oh my God, put your seatbelt on, right? Because I still think I'm in control. I still think that, that I have power. Did I love God's kids, right? Oh my goodness. Do I love God's kids, right? It also asks me, am I living the best life, right? I am living my best life, and I'm grateful for the blessings. I can't sit in, woe is me, because that's going to diminish my usefulness to you and to God, right? Now, when I follow the directions, great things happen. I promise. Those are the promises, right? The 10-step promises that I'm placed in a position of neutrality, safe and protected. I can go anywhere today, guys. I'm living this spiritual life according to principles. I couldn't even pick up a drink today, even if I wanted to, right? I recoil from it like from a hot flame, right? See, Sherry's here today, and one of the things that my grand sponsor says is that I can pretend to care, but I can't pretend to show up, right? Again, it's taking action. I can pretend to say, oh, I'm so sorry, that's terrible, right? But what is my action? What am I doing, right? How am I a reflection of God's love, right? Am I sending you a card? Am I showing up to shovel your driveway? Am I showing up to take care of my mother-in-law, right? How am I taking care of God's kids? I think it also asks me then, we constantly remind ourselves that we are no longer running the show. Oh my God, I hate that, right? But I'm not running the show. Guys, like I said, I'm a pilot. And when I am in the pilot, or when I'm pilot in charge, I think I'm commanding the aircraft, which is true. I am, right? I have the controls. I take it up and I put her back down and I fly safely. But here's the reality. Air traffic control is in charge. Air traffic control, right? And then they radio me and they tell me what to do. Because I can only see a certain segment of the sky, right? They can see everything, and they are connected with other air traffic controllers. They are connected with the National Weather Service, right? And they can vector me around a storm I can't see, right? See, guys, I don't have to understand why air traffic control is asking me to increase my altitude. I don't have to believe that they're right in asking me to do this, right? But if I do, I end up with a safe and happy outcome, and none of us die with our boots on, right? When I am flying, I must follow those directions. I'm running out of time, but I'm going to finish with this. Another aviation example. And there's always one or two in the crowd. How many of you can physically fix an aircraft, right? Fix those big Pratt Whitney Lycoming engines, or put the rivets back in on air brakes, whatever it takes, right? How many of you understand aerodynamics? and the coefficient of lift, right? How many of you can actually get into the cockpit and fly that aircraft, right? But does that stop any of you from getting on the plane at Gatwick or Heathrow and flying to Tenerife? No, right? You trust that that aircraft is going to get you from point A to point B, right? But you follow certain directions and certain protocols, right? You get up, you go to the airport, you go through security, you get on the aircraft, you sit down, you put on your seatbelt, you shut up, and you enjoy your flight, trusting that that aircraft is going to get you from point A to point B, right? See, I don't have to understand how God works to have God work in my life. Just like you guys don't have to understand how an airplane flies in order for you to use that airplane, right? It's like my phone, right? I can't see radio waves. I can't feel radio waves. I can't hear radio waves. I can't taste radio waves. But I know my phone works. Why? Because I can text any one of you and you will respond back, right? See, I can't see God. I can't taste God. I can feel God, but not, like punching me in the arm. And I can hear God, but I don't have to understand God to have God work in my life, guys. I don't have to understand how God works to have an effective contact with him, right? I only need to follow the directions. Exactly, right? Exactly as indicated, right? I have to follow the directions in our big book, pages, 86 and 87 for a start. And when I do that, I am rendered sober, sane, and usefully whole, right? I get to be a wife, a mother, a daughter, a sister, a grandmother, right? A daughter-in-law. I get to be a friend, a sponsor, and a proud, sober woman in a 12-step program, mine of which is Alcoholics Anonymous, right? So this leads me to, things are falling over here, the prayer of St. Francis found on page 99 of our book. And this is truly how I want to live my life. So if you guys will give me just a minute here. Lord, make me a channel of thy peace, that where there is hatred, I may bring love, that where there is wrong, I may bring the spirit of forgiveness, that where there is discord, I may bring harmony, that where there is error, I may bring truth, that where there is doubt, I may bring faith, that where there is despair, I may bring hope, that where there are shadows, I may bring light, that where there is sadness, I may bring joy. Lord, grant that I may seek rather to comfort than to be comforted, to understand than to be understood, to love than to be loved. For it is by self-forgetting that one finds, and it is by forgiving that one is forgiven, and it is by dying that one awakens to eternal life. Guys, who has it better than me, right? I am basking in the sunlight of the Spirit, and I truly wish all of you to join me in the fellowship of the Spirit, right? Not the spirit of the fellowship, but the fellowship of the Spirit, where we get to live holy, useful, sane lives as a result of our conscious contact with this power I can't even begin to understand. And it's through this opportunity, this relationship with God, that God gives me back some power to look after his kids, to love his kids. That's what my job is today. And for that, I am eternally grateful. And Young, I think that's it. Thanks, guys.
To you.
Hi guys, hi Lovey, that was amazing. Thank you so much. My name's Sarah, I'm an addict. You're obviously just so full of gratitude, and this program is clearly, doing amazing things for you in your life. Can you talk to us a little bit about how you remain patient with maybe newcomers who aren't getting it, or I have a friend in my life who's very much still in the madness, and I just really want her to give this a go. And sometimes I struggle to remain patient and tolerant. Can you talk to us a little bit about how you do that, please?
Yeah, absolutely. You know what? It is not about me, right? It is about all of you. And I'm just trying to find it. In to the employers on page 139, it says, when dealing with an alcoholic, addict. There may be a natural annoyance that a man can be so weak, stupid, and irresponsible. Even when you understand the malady better, you may feel this feeling rising, right? This is about sponsors who just don't get it. I couldn't not drink and I couldn't stay stopped, right? I get that. I fully identify with that lack of that I just can't stop, and that I'm going to continue to do all of these maladaptive behaviors. And what it is that we get to love them through that episode. It's not always easy. And sometimes we might need to say to somebody, look, you know what? I might not be the right person for you, but I'm always going to be here for you, right? Sometimes we need to direct them either into a different fellowship or to a different sponsor. But fundamentally, we have no control over somebody getting sober or staying sober, right? Because we are a human power, and I need a power greater than me. And what they need is a power greater than them, who will give them that satisfaction or give them that spiritual awakening that they don't have to pick up a drink or a drug. I don't know if that made sense.
Lovely. And Michael, you're next, please.
Hi, Michael, addict. Thank you very much for your share, Lovey. Your energy was just everywhere. So you mentioned how you can be like pleasant in person. For me, my actions are I'm always loving with my actions and that, but my thoughts can be very judgmental, or we'll just go with judgmental. How do you get pure thoughts? So you just, you're just accepting and loving and kind and just see the best in everyone. Does that ever happen? Or, is it always just spiritual progress, not spiritual perfection? And I'll leave it there. Cheers.
Oh my goodness, Michael, that's a great question. You know what? I have many spiritual bad hair days, right? Where I can be kind and loving and go, oh, you're so sweet. Meanwhile, I'm thinking, you are such a moron. Like, what is wrong with you? Just do it, right? But I don't say it. And that's where the pause in the 11th step comes into my life, right? It keeps me from opening my mouth. For me, the traditions also keep me from opening my mouth, because, we're about unity. We're about a loving God as he may express himself in our group conscience, right? That I am just but a trusted servant. And there's this really great Al-Anon line. Does it need to be said? Does it need to be said by me? And does it need to be said by right now? Yeah, the answer is usually no, right? But it's a work in progress. It takes time, right? It's a practice that I have to put myself, or at least find a neutral place for me to start, because I can get very judgmental. I can get very opinionated. Today, I just don't share it as often as I used to. And that is progress.
You and Young, your question, please.
Yeah, thank you, Tanya. Hi, everyone. My name's Young, I'm a recovered addict. Thank you, Lovey. Always great to hear you. You talked about page 86 and 87. Well, at 86, I retire at night. These daily practices that we have, and you said it's a good start. And I was wondering where that start has taken you into other practices along the way.
Ooh. You know what? It's absolutely comprehensive, right? It is now everything that I do. These questions that are asked, at night or upon awakening, these are going on all day long, right? This is an ongoing daily conversation that I have. I get to check myself. I get to check myself with my interaction with others, with God's kids. And that practice of prayer and meditation, actively listening to God, listening for God, and actively speaking to God is not just, a morning and a nighttime thing. It is all day, persistent, consistently, right? It's like that group chat everybody has, and you keep getting messages and you just little responses, right? I just stay in touch. And hey, thank God, I haven't fallen out of that practice, right? I know that my illness is progressive, right? And it keeps moving up like this. So my spiritual fitness has to stay in front of my in front of my illness, right? And I know that today. There's no lurking notion whatsoever that I can ever, drink or drug safely. That's beyond me. And I know that today. And so I'm terrified of, relapsing. So these are the practices that I implement daily, consistently, every single day, by the minute, to make sure that I stay in front of my illness. I don't know if that answered your question.
Very much. And Isaac, you're next, please.
Thank you so much, Tanya, for taking the meeting. Thank you, everybody being a service. Hi, I'm Isaac. I'm a recovered addict. Lovey, thank you so much for your share. It was really, really good to hear you. I really loved how you talked about experiencing or displaying compassion instead of just tolerating. And my question for you is, in those moments where the self or the thinking is anything but compassionate, what steps or prayers do you take to kind of redirect that, or for that to be redirected for you into a place of compassion and understanding?
Oh, you know what? That's an absolutely fabulous question. So in the fourth step, right, it talks about fear. And first of all, I need to recognize that I'm being intolerant, right? I need to recognize my character defects. I need to recognize that I am not behaving well right here in this moment in time, right? And so it takes me to the fear prayer, right? I ask God to remove the fear, because everything for me is based around fear. And then I need to execute the opposite of what I'm doing. So if I'm being intolerant, if I am being judgmental, opinionated, right? I need to execute the opposite behavior. I need to be patient. And sometimes it's just as simple as taking a deep breath, going, God, please give me the strength not to strangle him, right? And not strangle him. Woo! And then it says, we start to overcome, fear, or we overcome, the urge to strangle somebody. But then it also asks me to resolutely turn my attention to somebody that I can help. Who can I help in that moment, right? And it doesn't have to be another member of a 12-step program. It could be that little old lady that's in the grocery store paying in coupons and pennies. And I could say to her, hey, you know what? Can I bag your groceries? Can I take them out to the car for you? See, I don't get to sit in those character defects anymore, because it doesn't do me any good, and it diminishes my usefulness to God. But it's a constant practice. It's the recognition of those character defects, and then asking God for the strength to execute the opposite behavior, and then do it, right? I have to do it. Even if I don't want to be patient and kind and loving, guess what? Fine, I'll do it. And I can grit my teeth and smile, but my actions are louder than words, right? Because my illness is centered right in the middle of my head, right? And all my thoughts are generated by my illness. The only thing I have is my actions. So even though I'm saying, right, I can do the next right thing. And slowly but surely, my actions will then take over my thinking.
We'll be reducing the question time to 2 minutes now. And Andrew, come in next, please.
Good afternoon, beautiful souls all. Good evening. Thank you, Tanya, for keeping us at our oars here. Lovey, it's great to hear you again, but I have to say I'm getting a little anxious every time I see that Duncan Hines thing come up. I'm expecting a piece of cake at some point. No, I'm just kidding. Precise instructions, this, when I was first in AA, I thought, no, this goes everything against my grain. You want me to sit in a room with strangers? You want me to find my truths? Oh my God. And yet you mentioned that freedom, those miracles there in step 10, right in the book. I noticed right off years ago that, what was that? Step 11, most of all, we pray for freedom from self. Now there is the progression of the disease. There's the crux of Andrew's problem. Oh my gosh. So then, I debated on going out to an in-person meeting yesterday, and I thought, just go. And it was a big book too, and it's amazing. So the Zoom and the in-person are a good mix for me. And I want to thank you again for your beautiful message today. I didn't bring my red spongy nose. Thank you.
Thank you. And could Sherry come in, please?
There we go. Oops. Hi guys, Sherry Alcoholic. Hey. So I mostly want to say, Lovey, I love you. Lovey's my bestie. And I love hearing you share all the time. And I want to say, I don't know why I'm saying this, but I know whoever needs this knows why. Lovey walks what she's talking about. It's not just words that she gets on a meeting and she's the speaker, and she's actually living it. There's walk the walk and talk the talk, and she really walks the walk. And I just want to say about that, she's going to be 10 years sober this year. And I just want to say about this, you have to be in it to win it. Like, meeting makers do not make it. I know that was a saying that was said around the program, but the walking is staying in the middle of it. My sponsor is 49 years sober, and she's in the middle of it. She still is doing the deal on a daily. So that's that. And then, Lovey, my question for you is, praying only for the knowledge of God's will for you and the power to carry that out when faced with indecision. How do you discern what's God's will and what's self-will?
Oh, amazing.
No.
I have a God squad, right? I go to my God squad and I ask them, right? Because if I'm in self, if I'm thinking, what's in it for me? How can I best manipulate, manage, coerce this situation for my best outcome, right? I'm not doing God's will. And so I have a God squad who will be open and honest with me and say, you know what? Maybe that's not the direction you take. Yeah. But that's the message I heard from God. Yeah. Is it really? Is it really? And so, for me, guys, God comes to me first through the people of Alcoholics Anonymous, right? God comes to me through skin, right? That the book tells me, for deep down in every man, woman, and child is the fundamental idea of God, and you all radiate God. So when I stop and get rid of self and listen to you, right, then then chances are I'm not on a collision course. But taking your advice is not always easy, but I do it because I know I don't know everything. Even though I think I do, right? I don't. And that's why I have a sponsor, a God squad, and a husband who loves me dearly and doesn't want anything stupid to happen to me. So I listen to him as well. Hope that helps, Sharon.